before, Rachel?
No.
Rachel is here to find out whether she has a sexually transmitted infection or STI, sometimes referred to as a sexually transmitted disease or STD.
Like, I'm really glad I'm doing it, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of scared that I'm gonna have something.
Rachel?
Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Rachel and her boyfriend had sex. Then she found out he'd been cheating on her.
When you are sexually active, do you use the method of birth control?
I never have.
Never have been sexually active?
No, I've never
used the
used
method of
birth control. No.
It looks like you're here for the STD check today.
Mm-hmm.
She'll get the tests and some facts about just how big a risk she's been taking.
When you're having sex with someone, you're basically having sex with everyone that they've had sex with as
Right.
well. Not just currently, but in the past as well. And your body is susceptible to whatever they've come in contact with.
Rachel never considered the risks of sexual activity until now. She never thought about what could happen and what that would mean for her now or in the long run.
They're in alphabetical order. It's kind of scary that they put the STDs in alphabetical order, that
Yeah.
there's enough
Oh
to
my
get in
gosh.
alphabetical order.
Yeah. Wow.
And she's not the only one who never considered the risks before having sex. Many teens agree that the risks of sexual activity are often overlooked.
There's not enough respect for the repercussions that sex can have beyond pregnancy.
A lot of people forget that STDs and STIs are a major part of, a major consequence of what happens. But a lot of people just worry about pregnancy and that stuff.
There are other factors out there besides just 3 or 4 STDs. There are lots of things out there that can harm you, and they can harm you, and a few of them can still kill you, but people don't know about them.
And if it's not AIDS, I don't think people really care about the STD as long as it won't kill you.
I think for teenagers, the way they feel is that, nothing's ever going to happen to me. I can do whatever I want and pretty much I'll be all right.
Me personally, I think that there's no sure way of saying, hey, I'm monogamous, I won't get this, I protect myself. Abstinence is the only true way.
List some short-term and long-term risks of sexual activity. Bianca is 17 and has been sexually active. Her face is hidden because she doesn't want her parents to know. She's embarrassed that she didn't consider the risks at all before she had sex.
I wasn't thinking about my parents, what they would think. I wasn't thinking about getting pregnant. I wasn't thinking about having AIDS or getting any type of STDs. And I wasn't thinking about anyone, just what was happening at the moment.
And she says she has huge regrets about her lack of education and lack of self-control.
I was so mad at myself because I didn't use protection. I was so mad at myself for not thinking. All these thoughts was running through my head. Was I pregnant? Do I have any STDs? I don't even know this. I mean, I know my boyfriend, but it's only been 4 months. Do I really know him? Do I really know his past?
She agonized over what to do, where to go for help. About anything else, she would have talked to her parents. But sex?
If I tell them, they'll go, they'll flip out. They'll never let me see the daylight again. I was just so nervous. I couldn't talk to anyone really but my friends.
Her friend Amy works part-time at a health clinic.
You could call the door and make an appointment.
Amy knew the facts, the risks, and made sure Bianca understood just how serious the situation was. An estimated 19 million STIs occur annually, almost half of them among people ages 15 to 24. Some, like chlamydia and gonorrhea, are curable. Others, like herpes and HIV, never go away.
She influenced me a lot. Anytime I want to answer to a question, she always has the answer to it.
Bianca was lucky she had a friend with reliable information. But she could have gone to a counselor, a health clinic, or even her parents. A lot of teens say that even though it's embarrassing, that conversation can really help put the risks in perspective.
I think you really need to try to talk to your parents. Really have an open communication, because there's a lot of stuff they may know that we just don't know.
Those parents I know, they really only want the best for their children, bottom line. I just think that all parents would support their children. They love them. You know, I love my daughter no matter what mistakes she makes. I'm there for her.
It might be awkward at first, but after you get over that, parents can help you recognize all the risks in the short term and further down the road. They can also talk about the benefits of waiting to have sex. Having this kind of information is the only way to make a really good decision. And that decision has to be clear in your mind before you're in a situation that tests you.
It's a Pandora's box, and it takes a lot of maturity to be able to handle it with all the respect that it needs. And I want to help them with the choices they make, but I want them to make a choice by the light of the day, not in the heat of the moment.
I would say to another teenager who was thinking about becoming sexually active to really look deep into it, you know, really give it a lot of thought. You know, just, I don't know, maybe write down all the things that you want to accomplish in life, and then you just list the things that can stop you if you decide to have sex. You know, there's a possibility you can get pregnant, or you can catch, you know, a sexually transmitted disease.
As for Bianca, she's still too scared to talk to her parents, but she's gotten enough facts to change her mind about sex.
STD scares me so much, I didn't even want to have sex anymore.
And it's important for all teens to realize, just like Bianca, that just because you've had sex before doesn't mean you can't say no in the future. You get older, more educated. You have every right to change your mind and your behavior. When Lawrence was 18, he contracted HIV. He thought about the risks, but he misjudged them.
For me, though, my risks were very low. It really wasn't like I had all these sex partners, or I had done all these drugs, or I had done XYZ that people consider to be high risk.
Not only did he underestimate the danger, he also fell for the misconception that you can tell by looking at someone if they're infected with HIV, that somehow they'd look different.
You wouldn't know if someone had HIV, especially if you were going to have sex with them. You would definitely know that, but you don't.
STDs is not something you hear about. I mean, you know, if you have an STD, you don't tell everybody. You don't walk around with a sign saying, I have an STD. And so you don't see it that often. You don't know who has it.
And we're talking about HIV and AIDS.
Today, Lawrence works as an HIV STI educator, warning teenagers that half of all new HIV infections occur among young people between the ages of 13 and 24. He pleads with them not to make the same mistakes he did, and it starts with learning what the risks are.
So let's start with this one. Intercourse with a latex condom. This person thought it was a no-risk activity. What do you guys think?
It's no risk. It's no risk. Right. What if it breaks?
What if it breaks? What if it falls off? You're in trouble.
Once these teens learn the facts, Lawrence tells his story and gives the class advice on how to make sure they don't repeat his mistakes.
I will say no if I need to.
But just telling teens to say no may not be enough.
That message alone is not enough. Telling someone to be abstinent is not enough for them to develop the behaviors necessary to become an abstinent by choice individual.
The first step is accepting the fact that choosing to be abstinent is okay.
It's okay to be abstinent. There's nothing wrong with not having sex and not doing drugs. It doesn't make you any more or less cool. Because you're making a decision for yourself.
And making that decision is easier if you ask yourself a few simple questions.
Do you have the information you need to make the best decision for yourself about your sexual activities? Do you know enough about yourself to have sex with somebody? My life is worth me asking these questions. And if you're not able to ask these questions, you might need to go back to the first question of, is this really the right time for me to have sex? You can live a very healthy and powerful life being HIV positive, but it's a very heavy burden. So think about the burden I'm carrying, and think about if that is something you are willing to manage when you think about the next time you want to have sex.
Rachel is on her way back to the clinic to get her test results.
If I don't have anything from this, then I count my blessings and appreciate the fact that I put myself in a very high-risk situation, and then I come out okay. Then I'm going to be very thankful for that.
Rachel, you can come on back.
She's nervous, embarrassed, scared for her future. And she could have avoided it all by considering this moment before she decided to have sex.
I did want to go over with you some factors that I want to make sure that you make different choices in the future. It's never too late to start a new habit and pattern of behavior. And that is to do things that enable you to have the future that you want.
Rachel has decided one way to help her have the future she wants.
First off, I'm really not planning to have sex for a long, long time after this.
Now for the results. She's HIV negative, but will need to get tested again in 6 months. Syphilis and gonorrhea tests were also negative, but she didn't escape the risks completely.
The chlamydia test result did come back positive.
Okay.
With that, as we went over, the chlamydia and gonorrhea, those are both curable sexually transmitted diseases. So you can take medicine and you'll be done with it.
Okay.
It's over. But we do want you to get treated as soon as possible.
Okay.
Back in the waiting room, Rachel hugs her friend, relieved to know the facts, and lucky that the infection she has is curable.
I'm really relieved that this is what I have and that I can get rid of it. But I definitely, it's really weird to think that I have an STD.
Even with all the worry and embarrassment, she's glad she's finally taken control of her health. She's also opened the lines of communication with her parents. That will help her weigh risks and benefits in future decisions.
If you think there's any way possible that you could sit down with your mom and have that conversation, then I would do it, because it's a really difficult thing, but it's going to be more difficult if you've got that added pressure that not only are you worried that you might have some kind of disease, but then you're worried that your mom's going to find out about it, or that you're going to get in trouble with your parents and there's going to be fighting. And so if you can take away that pressure and know, and I think most parents, while they may be upset or mad, I think most parents would try to support their kid.
Her mom agrees completely.
I would personally rather you tell me what you're doing, and even if I don't like it, at least we can talk about it.
And a lot of teens say you need to talk, to find out the facts about all of the risks before you make your decisions.
The more we shut out the disease, the less we talk about it, the higher the risk we're all at.
Being in a sexual relationship, you could slow yourself down, but you're putting yourself at risk every time.
Just one little mistake, and that can cause you the rest of your life. It's not worth it. Not at all.
I think sex is one of the riskiest of risky behaviors that you can do. I'd say it's, up there with all the really hard drugs and things. I think it's just incredibly risky.
It's like with sex, you're gambling with your life, because you don't know. A lot of times you don't know if you choose to be sexually active. You don't know what the person has. You do it out of spur of the moment feelings and your situation and things like that. So I think people should really think about sex before they partake in it.
And we know the healthiest way, unequivocally, is to be abstinent till someone marries and is in a monogamous relationship.
Relationships aren't about sex, and there are plenty of people who have made it to getting married without having sex. So you can still have, very solid, very meaningful relationships without sex in the mix.
All that I can say is the safest sex is no sex.
What would you tell a friend who was considering having sex?